Everyone was very sad when Silent Hills, the much-anticipated collaboration between Guillermo del Toro and Hideo Kojima, was abruptly cancelled, and what made that news even more shocking was that its demo was one of the best in living memory. But hey, gamers are used to disappointment. However, being disappointed after watching beautifully crafted CG trailers, that's almost acceptable in this day and age. What stinks harder, however, is a deceiving demo. Whether it's one you actually get to play, or just a staged demo, when gameplay footage lies to you, when that lets you down, that's when Daddy gets mad. I'm Adam from WhatCulture.com, and here are 10 misleading video game demos that totally lied to you. Number 10, Watch Dogs. I don't want to lay into watch_dogs too much. Sometimes your game's production swells to the point that it can't quite perform as you initially promised. That's just a thing that happens. That's why most companies make their early footage obviously pre-rendered. Watch_dogs lit up the gaming community in 2012 with a jaw-dropping stage demo of apparently playable gameplay, the graphics in which were simply stunning. Unfortunately, that ended up being very much not the finished product, with graphics having to be given a noticeable downgrade by the time the game came out. Most called bullshit, and that Ubisoft had lied to them. Number 9, Star Wars The Force Unleashed 2. Right from the off, the SW:TFU2 demo made it an awesome experience to wield the Force. You began as Starkiller and are immediately charged with dispatching waves of foes using your full toy box of silly Star Wars powers. Also, you can cut people's legs off. That's fun. What was so disappointing when you upgraded to the full price version was that you realised this level is the whole game on repeat. Unlike the previous The Force Unleashed, you kick straight off with most of your powers, so there's very little progression in gameplay. You fight, then fight some more, leaving a game that was poorly paced and ultimately boring. Number 8, Red Faction Guerrilla. Like The Force Unleashed, the difference in quality between the demo and the final game is startling. The Red Faction games were always more suited towards being tech demos rather than full games, as Volition never quite seemed able to make a compelling story to complement their destruction engines. The demo was pure, distilled Red Faction fun. You were given a bunch of buildings, a sledgehammer, some remote mines, and told, "Go for it, soldier!" Tearing down a building by whacking away its struts and watching it crumble never got old. Same with commandeering a huge mech suit and simply walking through a building. Why? Because you, space. The game itself is a much more dreary affair, sad to say, with Volition's version of Mars being a deeply boring place. There were still buildings to destroy, but they came bundled with a weak, meandering story, uninspired, samey locations, and flat characters. It just wasn't the toy box the demo made it out to be. Number 7, Halo 2. Another deceptive stage demo now, this time the gameplay footage presented at E3 2003 by Bungie for Halo 2. The demo was a level in New Mombasa that featured turret, shooty fun, and Warthog vs Ghost gunfire chasing on a highway. That level wasn't in the final version of the game and anything close to resembling what was advertised, because Bungie realised the Xbox simply couldn't cope with how good the advertised level was, which is one hell of a humble brag. Any fans hoping to replicate what they saw at E3 would be sorely disappointed. Number 6, Mirror's Edge. This was yet another case of players feeling they'd been sold a beautiful car only to pop the bonnet and find the engine had been replaced with wasps. Mirror's Edge was a free-running platformer action game released by EA, hyped to god levels by its magnificent demo. Short, but breathtaking in its speed and fluidity, the demo had the player running full pelt across a series of rooftops, wowing gamers with not only the game's bright white beauty, but also how it offered a variety of routes to take on your course. However, the promise of exploration and experimentation was a false one, the levels of the finished game becoming more and more linear, regressing into mostly corridor-based platforming. Often there is only one route for the player to take, and the precision required in first-person platforming ground the pace to a halt. Also, shit combat. Boo this game. Number 5, Brutal Legend. The Brutal Legend demo was a blast. The writing was warm and nuanced, as you'd expect from the man responsible for Grim Fandango, Psychonauts, and Monkey f***ing Island. The world was fully realised, and the combat system looked like a lot of fun, especially the ability to use a well-timed guitar solo to wreck your foes. The demo perfectly sold the game as heavy metal God of War, and everyone was up for that. Problem was, that wasn't the game. It ended up being a real-time strategy, the second half of Legend revolving around coordinating battles between magical armies. See, the game isn't terrible, but the sheer balls of the deception at play hugely impacts its appeal. However, it's not the worst game on this list. That game's next. Number 4, Sonic Unleashed. Oh, fuck this game. The Sonic Unleashed demo is a classic example of a false promise. The finished game was split into 3 types of level: day, night, and adventure, with the demo presenting one of the day levels. They're the best parts of the game, feeling like classic Sonic, the focus being on momentum and precise timing, so expectations were high that Unleashed would return the Hedgehog to his former glory. Then everything went wrong when the werehog arrived. During the nighttime sections, the game's momentum slams to a stop so violently that you expect a shower of rings to burst out of your console. Sonic transforms into a giant lumbering hairy beast with stretchy arms called a werehog. Were does not mean wolf, were means man, and for huge stretches the game transforms into a horribly dull brawler. Anyone who's bought the game on the strength of the demo must have felt genuinely mugged. Number 3, Metal Gear Solid 2, Sons of Liberty. So let's talk about Raiden. The albino rookie has become something of a Jar Jar Binks figure for the MGS franchise, tarred and feathered by disappointed fans. It's not really his fault. It is his fault. It is his fault. What contributed a lot to the fans' ire was that the Metal Gear Solid 2 demo was one of the greatest of all time. You played as Solid Snake, not Raiden. F*** you, buddy. You were let loose on a tanker and given time to experiment to your heart's content. And then they hoodwinked the players. They bamboozled them. Once that level was done, out went franchise lead Snake and in came the pretty little blonde boy, and the rest is history. While the gameplay of Metal Gear Solid 2 elevates it to one of the finest video games of the PlayStation 2 generation, it was also a huge, anger-reducing mess crushed under its own hype. And Metal Gear Solid 3 is better, and I'll fight you if you disagree. Number 2, No Man's Sky. And speaking of your own hype disemboweling you, even if No Man's Sky had been the greatest game of all time, cooked you a steak dinner and then gave you the best sex of your life, people would still have gone,
yeah, but it wasn't quite as good as the teaser trailer made it look. I feel lied to. I feel lied to.
Thing is, as we said before, not living up to a pre-rendered cutscene, you kind of get that with gaming. That's something you have to expect. But when the company pre-renders some gameplay, then passes that off as a playable stage demo on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, oh, that's a different story. The footage aired and played in front of millions ended up being vastly different from the finished game, and eagle-eyed viewers went back and saw that Sean Murray's finger movements weren't even lining up with the movements on screen, making the whole thing an exercise in falsehood. And number 1, Aliens Colonial Marines. A demo so misleading it got the games company hit with a class action lawsuit. Hooray! It's one of the most infamous gaming deceptions in recent history, as Gearbox Software showed what appeared to be staged demos of ACM at E3 and PAX, the quality of which were vastly superior to the final game that shipped. Even the president of Gearbox had to acknowledge that the misleading demos were a problem, promising to launch an investigation into how such patent false advertising was authorised. Naughty, naughty, naughty boys. And that's our list. Did we miss any out? Tell us about it in the comments. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter here. I'm Adam from WhatCulture.com, and I'll see you soon.